Welcome to Spicer and Company. I'm Sean Spicer.
And I'm Lindsay Keith. Well, if it's in your refrigerator or even taking up space in your house, there's probably a good chance it got there on a truck. Commercial trucking is the linchpin of the supply chain. So if there are any issues in the trucking industry, they are going to have a direct impact on the consumer. That's you.
Yeah, that's right. And as we get closer to Memorial Day weekend, if you're traveling or not, and if you aren't, maybe you're staying at home having a barbecue, well, those burgers and beers, they got to stores on a truck. And truckers, at least the ones I bumped into today, aren't happy. They're lined up around the White House to make it known. And because all 50 states are now starting to open, many Americans are probably getting to go out and go somewhere, anywhere probably right now. You're so stirred up. But are you ready to get on a bus, a train, or a plane? We're about to ask the Secretary of Transportation how she's dealing with the truckers and if there's a plan to keep us safe. And later in the show, we're playing Veep Stakes with our company. And remember the story we talked about yesterday regarding the whole New York Times lashing out at Ronan Farrow's coverage of the Today Show? Well, host Matt Lauer, former host Matt Lauer, is swinging right back at Ronan Farrow about Farrow's reporting of Matt Lauer's sexual misconduct allegation. Now, if you remember all this, this is after Farrow's reporting has come under scrutiny from the New York Times. But first, let's get to our top story. Should we be worried that our nation's truckers are not happy, and will it impact store shelves? Well, here is the scene on Constitution Avenue across from the White House this morning. This is my very own excellent camera work, as you can tell. Truckers are protesting the economic hardship that they're facing from low wages. Most of them claim that the brokers who connect them to manufacturers and retailers are price gouging the drivers and keeping their rates real low. So what can be done about this? We welcome the Secretary of Transportation herself, Elaine Chao. Madam Secretary, welcome. This morning, I had the opportunity to stop and speak to some of these truckers this morning. I want to let you hear why one gentleman says he's protesting.
They are not paying us how they are supposed to pay. They are taking 65% of any loads. When we put the equipment, we put the truck, we put the fuel, we put the tolls, we pay everything. So we got a lot of expenses. Mr. President, please, you know the truck driver, you know the Air Force. We are not sleeping comfortable. We are not eating hot food. When we get out to the street, we are in risk. And now we are being faithful to this country.
All right, Madam Secretary, 80% of all this stuff flows through these independent truckers. What is being done to help them out?
You know, truckers are just terrific. I mean, they really are American heroes. They keep our supply chain going. They keep our shelves, store shelves stocked, and they make sure that medical equipment gets to where they need to go. So they've been just terrific. What they really want is more flexibility. So just the other day, like 2 days ago, the department issued, for the first time, basically since 1937, greater flexibility to truck drivers so that when they are faced with increased traffic, congestion, problems with weather that will cause delays, the rules and regulations that govern how many hours they can drive will not be so prescriptive during a pandemic crisis such as we are in now. So these new regulations, which as I mentioned, have not been changed since 1937, give these drivers much greater flexibility so that they can take a rest, they can pull over at a time when they feel they need the rest rather than being dictated to. The second issue which they're talking about basically concerns freight forwarders, and that actually is a Department of Justice issue. The acting administrator of Federal Motor Vehicles Administration at the Department of Transportation has actually talked to these people, and the White House Chief of Staff has also talked personally with these truckers. So they are part of a different number of stakeholders, different groups that are in this industry. And so we're sympathetic. As I mentioned, we've already released just the other day the hours of service, giving much greater flexibility. And this is something that they had welcomed when they were talking to our group.
And thank you. I know they all had signs that said they want to make trucking great again, so I'm sure they appreciate all you're doing there. But let me shift topics for a second. I know everybody keeps talking about getting the economy open again, but I think there's a lot of fear and worry for people about getting on a bus, train, or a plane. And what are we doing to get people to feel confident in doing that so we can get this economy moving forward?
Well, I think all of the modes of transportation, the airlines, the trains, the passenger trains, the transit companies, buses, they're all very cognizant that they need to assure the public of, the safety aspects of their travel. So I think as we come out of this pandemic and as we reopen our economy, we're going to see an increase in road traffic first. And then we will see other types of travel pick up. But all of these modes of transportation have been given billions of dollars by the federal government to not only maintain payroll and operations to keep them going, but also cleaning equipment, cleaning supplies. So $25 billion was given to transit companies, authorities, $10 billion given to airports, $50 billion given to airlines, travel agents, contractors, and that kind of money, that money can be used to buy cleaning equipment, increase the cleansing protocol, buy sanitizing, ingredients, whatever is necessary. And I think all of these modes of transportation are also increasing more frequently and cleaning more intensively their equipment as well.
I'm sure that's all welcome because the industry, if you look at it overall in the stock market, is just getting whacked. But as we head into Memorial Day, and a lot of people are going to be maybe hitting the skies for the first time, you wrote an op-ed the other day in USA Today where you talked about refunds and you wanted to make sure that there was some standard to get people their refunds if they weren't traveling. But in that case, the federal government's getting involved. Here's the thing that I want to know is, are you going to be willing to get involved in the safety piece of this? I know, for example, the Airline Association today asked you guys, or asked TSA specifically,
safety is our number one priority. That's our number one priority.
Right.
Yeah.
But if TSA is being urged to do temperature checks, what is the Department of Transportation doing, or is it leaving it up to each airline to decide? And will TSA want to do things like temperature checks?
Well, we are in charge of the safety of the aircraft. We're in charge of the safety of the train. It's a physical equipment. It's OSHA and CDC that is in charge of the workplace and the internal environment. So that's not really our mandate.
And so one of the things, and I know this probably isn't in your mandate either, but I know that you're heavily involved in this, and I've asked a couple guests this all week long. Don't you think that not having liability protection for these airlines is going to be a big problem? Because you're right, you guys have put all this money into bailing them out, and it's just going to take one passenger saying that they got coronavirus on a flight, by sitting near somebody. And I think, while it may not be in your purview, is this something that you're willing to get behind?
Oh, I think the whole of government is involved in this manner. I mean, all employers are concerned about liability, considerations, because as workers come back, I mean, every employer is going to be worried about that. So liability protection, I think, is pretty important.
The other thing is, to stay on this topic for a moment, airline year-to-year revenue right now is down 98% for the week ending May 10th compared to last year at the same time. How concerned are you right now? Because there's a lot of talk about taking out the middle seat. How do you keep them sustainable if the travel's down and then we're doing things like taking the middle seat out that would inhibit them from getting back to full capacity?
Well, this is where, again, the phase-by-phase approach to reopening our economy is going to be very helpful. Because right now, passenger volume, as you mentioned, is down 95%. The number of airplanes up in our skies is down like 65%. Amtrak, transit, buses, we're seeing very reduced passenger volume. And as the economy comes back, more people will come back. And I think we will do it in a phased way. Right now, social distancing on most flights is actually quite possible.
Madam Secretary, thank you for joining us. Thanks for everything that you're doing to keep us safe on the roads and on the rails and in the air. So I appreciate everything you guys are doing.
Thank you.
All right. Coming up, the mainstream media continues to criticize President Trump for taking a controversial drug that they say doesn't work, because I know they're experts. But we're going to introduce you to a man that actually says it saved his life. Plus, are you enjoy getting out again? Dick Morris is here to explain the politics of reopening the economy and how it's actually going to affect the election this November. And later, don't miss this, we're playing Veep Stakes. We're going to tell you who we think Joe Biden's going to pick as his running mate. Stay tuned.